Hello, my name's Colin Crithers, and I'm a student reporter and broadcaster at the University of Iowa. As a journalist, my job is to tell stories, while also balancing everything else going on in my life as a student. But no one tells our stories. So, my goal is to tell the stories of the student journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers all across the country. Let's walk the student beat. Welcome in. Today we're walking the student beat with Rodney Prunty of New Mexico. Rodney, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. I want to thank you for having me on. It's very honored. I saw some of the episodes, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking some time to join me today. If you don't mind giving a little bit more of an introduction to yourself, the basics, the background, and the journalistic outlets you've worked with.
So I'm originally from Rockford, Illinois. I lived there for about 10 years of my life, and then I moved to Racine, Wisconsin. Lived there for about 4, and then from there I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been here for the past 6 years of my life, and things have been going great. Journalism outlets that I've worked for, I am currently the sports editor of the New Mexico Daily Lobo. And as of right now, I'm interning at a KOAT Action 7 News.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about those two experiences for you. But first, one beforehand, we just mentioned right before I started the recording that you're from Rockford, and I had to give a shout out to my roommate real quick if you listen to this, that he's pretty much from Rockford as well. So quick shout out to Nick Davenport. But anyways, the idea about getting into journalism, there's something that always kind of sparks it, right? So I want to learn your story. Why did you want to enter sports journalism?
So actually in high school, it was my senior year. I did not know what I wanted to do. I was all like, man, I'm gonna go into college. I, I don't know. I'm just gonna, wing it, right? So I was telling that to a teacher of mine. I never actually had this teacher as a teacher. I just knew him around. His name is Scott McCall, great guy. Had to give him a little shout out. But I was talking to him and he said, "Well, Rodney, what do you like?" And I said, "I like sports." And he was all like, "Anything else?" And I was like, "That's really about where it ends." And he was like, "Let me tell you this. We used to have a paper here. It obviously got discontinued. But what if you go to these? This was in December, and so he's like, "What if you go to basketball games? Right? Seasons kind of midway through. Um, just write out short 200-word stories, and I'll post them around the school." And from there, the Rodney Report was born. So after every basketball game, a Rodney Report would be hung around the school of Volcano Vista, and from there, I just found my love of journalism. I really enjoyed writing. I enjoyed interviewing players. I enjoyed doing all that, which then led me to, obviously, I go to UNM now. I applied to the New Mexico Daily Lobo, and the rest is history.
Talk to me a little bit more about the Rodney Report, real quick. So, was that like somewhat affiliated with the school? Was that just your own thing completely?
It was, I guess you could say it was kind of my own little thing in a way. It had the Volcano Vista Hawks logo on top, but I know one of the teachers didn't really like us hanging it up without his permission, so we kind of had to beg him to keep it up. But yeah, no, I mean, it was my own thing, and I didn't have a car my senior year. I was one of those seniors who had to. I lived like a couple minutes away, so walking wasn't that big of a deal. But I had to walk to games. Go in there. Some people knew what I was there for, and I can't do it now. But what I really liked about high school riding was I got to be more engaged in the game because I was sitting, in the bleachers, and I was doing some chants and everything. Obviously, you gotta keep a level of professionalism now, but I was in there shouting at players like, "Oh, you bum," But yeah,
Did I get that? I remember doing stuff in high school, and I'd go like video game, like do videography and just post some highlights or whatever. And we'd be at like a rival school or whatever, and I'd be jumping up and down on the baseline, like, "What's that call? Come on!" I 100% feel that.
it's hard not to. It's hard not to.
No, it really is. I know, and even now, like I don't know if you feel it. I'll admit it. I'll be up in the stands calling a game, or even just reporting on a game, and let's just say it's basketball, and I can
Yeah.
like come across and make it sound like it's okay, but I'm sitting there like, come on, like why did we just give up that bucket or something?
Right. I totally agree with you. You know, I kind of sneak mine in, right? Like if I'll probably tell you this later, but I remember UNM was playing MSU, and Nelly Jr. Joseph, I believe he's on the Atlanta Hawks practice squad right now, did an insane dunk. Like that man jumped from damn near the free throw line. I like stood up, I looked around, and I wanted to cheer, but I was like, oh man, it was tough.
No, that's always I always feel like it's a little harder to hold that together, especially as a student journalist, because you're there, like you're attending the school, you're a student, so you're kind of bought in, even if you weren't as a fan of that school, but you're also trying to balance a professional life. And I mean, you're describing it there. How do you try to balance those two things?
Um, I just kind of try to keep like a level head going into things. I am by no means, I will write about the Lobos, but I'm not a Lobo fan, believe it or not, right? Like I'll cheer for them, obviously, but I wasn't born here, I'm not jumping up and down for them, like I know you see the Rams flag behind me. That's a totally like I view them differently than the Lobos. Like I'm like, hey, if the Lobos win, that's amazing. If they lose, oh man, that sucks. But I got to still do my job. I have a job to do at the end of the day. I can't be going in there letting my emotions dictate the questions that I ask or the type of tone that I come in with. So
Absolutely. I gotta
they,
ask you real quick about the Rams. It's the St. Louis Rams too. That's
yes,
been your team forever, I assume.
yes, the Rams are my team forever. Long story, but it's basically just because of my dad. He was born in St. Louis, but the Rams were in LA when he was born, and
Oh.
his dad was kind of like uh, a local performer, and he would take him to LA a lot. So me and him, well, mainly him, and then he brought on to me, just gravitated towards all LA teams. So any LA team, we love them. Rams, Lakers. I'm not the biggest baseball guy, but when I watch it, I root for the Dodgers. Hockey is king. So all LA teams, gotta love them.
Hey, respect to that. So it wasn't too bad when the Rams moved from St. Louis back to LA, was it?
Oh yeah, well no, we had no. I mean, me and my dad had no issue with it. The only
Yeah.
issue we had was that Jeff Fisher was still still the head coach of the team.
No, fair to that right there. But you mentioned earlier on, and as we're talking about it, you're sports editor for the Daily Lobo. So talk to me a little bit what that looks like, what the Daily Lobo is, and just your role there.
So the Daily Lobo is the student publication for UNM. So we cover all things UNM. We also have a local minor league baseball. There we go. I was going to forget the term. Minor league baseball, the Albuquerque Isotopes, who are the affiliation for the Rockies. Not the best affiliation because the Rockies suck, but but still. And then we also have a USL soccer team in the United. They're pretty big. So those are the main sports that we cover at the Daily Lobo. In terms of what a day in the life of me working the Daily Lobo looks like, we have office hours on campus to where it's like mine are Wednesday, and so I'll be in the office for an hour on Wednesday. If anybody has any questions, they can come in, talk to me, and obviously, they can email or text me anyway. But office hours are preferred so I can clear things up, or if I need to hand people media passes or tell them where to go if they're new. Every Sundays we do pitch meetings. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus because of my internship, but I will be back this Sunday for that pitch meeting. So plan to go in there, all I'm a big Dragon Ball fan, so I'm like, this is me going from regular Goku to Super Saiyan. So yeah, but that's pretty much what a regular day looks like at the Daily Lobo for me.
Absolutely. You mentioned covering like the Albuquerque Isotopes and USL. And I mean, obviously, you're still covering the collegiate athletics there on campus, but what do you think the differences are? What do you learn by covering a semi professional sport compared to just a college sport?
Um, well, there's a big, honestly, I don't really think that there's that big of a difference for it. Maybe I was gonna say that there's a big difference, but then I was just thinking to myself, I was like, I don't know. Maybe in the way different media, I call them media people. I know they're POIs, right? Whatever, but I just call them media people.
Fair.
Um, so I know different ways that they interact with you could be different, right? I know UNM's football, amazing. But all of UNM's media people who reach out to us, they're great. Same thing with the isotopes and the United. I mean, I haven't had any really issues, and I don't really see differences between the people upstairs, pretty much up in the booth. Everybody's pretty kind. They're nice, which is good because I'm coming in there as like a little scrawny 5'10" kid. So I'm like, oh man, these guys have been seasoned, seasoned reporters. But yeah, no, I mean it's really the same in everywhere I go, at least, and I think that's for the most part because most of the people, whether it's from the Santa Fe New Mexican, Albuquerque Journal, a lot of them cover the same sport. So I see a lot of familiar faces everywhere I go.
Yeah, seeing the same guys everywhere definitely helps. Is it anything like nerve-wracking at all when you first started doing that, like thinking, all right, this is a professional sport. I am stepping into this.
I'm sorry, can you say it one more time? You freezed
Yeah,
up a little bit.
I
My
know
bad.
I froze there, didn't I?
Yeah, sorry. Say it one more time.
I was just gonna ask, was it like you were mentioning there about like, oh, I'm stepping into all this stuff, and was it nerve-wracking at all at first to think, oh, maybe this is a new level of athletics to cover?
Um. Oh yeah, 100%. Especially like going from high school to college. I mean, night and day, right? Uh, I'll say the craziest. My first article, in my opinion, is terrible. Okay, uh, don't read it. It's terrible. It's a bad one. It sucks. Okay. So what happened was, I took this pitch. It was about Hispanic Heritage Month,
Mhm.
and I was tasked with talking to Hispanic athletes around campus. And so I go up to I forget his name. He was a running back here. I don't know where he went. I guess he's transferred, whatever. But I went up to him. They're letting out of practice. People are walking out. I actually approached the wrong guy at first. That's how nervous I was. Um, I go up to him. I said, "So, well, what's your name? Is you stated it, pronouns?" I asked him all that, and then I only asked him two questions, and I left. I asked him two questions because in my head I was all like, "Oh, maybe I'm intruding on his time. I don't want to be intruding." And then we go to the next place. I only asked one question. I'm like, "Okay, thank you." And then I get back and I'm talking to my friends. I'm like, "Dude, I only have like 250 words written down on this paper right now." I was like, "That's it. I can't use any more interview sound. That's all I have." So, um, the nerves were definitely there in the beginning. And I'm pretty sure you know this. They kind of simmer down the more you do it, and obviously with anything that you do. Um, but I'm not nervous to ask anymore. It's more of like, hey, we're kind of on a mutual time span, right? I'm gonna ask as many questions as I can, and whenever like if it's an oppressor, hey, I got my questions in, I'm good. I got my three questions in for the presser. If it's one on one, I'll probably develop questions, come in with some pre planned, and then you know kind of just off the dome from there. So really more mellowed out now, but in the beginning, yeah, it was nerve wracking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. At least you're able like to ask some questions at the beginning, even if it's one or two. I know even for me, asking questions at the beginning was like a no-go. I was like, nope, I'm gonna let the everyone else in the presser handle it. I will prepare every single question. But I feel like after, as you said, like you mellow out a little bit, the more I kind of just let it off the flow with some of these interviews, they feel so much more comfortable.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, no, they're all pretty nice. But you mentioned like going from high school to college, the transition. You're still a writer there, and I want to ask what it was that you found maybe in high school or even college that really allowed you to fall in love with writing.
Um, I would really just say the storytelling aspect of it. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm very outgoing. I like talking a lot. Obviously, we're journalism and communication majors. Um, I love to tell stories. I love to go in detail. And with me, I'm like when I'm looking at just like a blank Google Doc or whatever, I'm like, okay, title first, important stuff, medium stuff, and then end it off, right? And I just like to expand on stuff. The way I like to write is like, and I don't know if you read any of my game articles. What I like to do is like, if you weren't there, I want you to feel like you were there. I want to tell you, hey, these are the big plays, these are the big moments that happened. This is how close the margin was. End of story. This is how it ended. Bang. And I really just enjoyed that. enjoyed that aspect of it. I at first was like, oh, I gotta write at least 500 words for this paper. I was like, oh snap, I'm not gonna reach that. But then, the more I went into doing games, I started off with women's basketball. Shout out Coach Mike Bradbury, great guy. But I started doing women's basketball. I started, developing my I'd say sports writing skills through that. Even throughout the early stuff, I was like, man, I love telling this story. And my friends would obviously read. I don't know how many people are walking around campus like, are you Rodney Prunty? But it makes me feel good when people can, feel like they were there.
No, absolutely. I will say real quick, I did go through a few of your articles, so I gotta say, very impressive writer. I'll make sure I link everything for people to notice as well. But I
Thank
want
you,
to give
thank
you
you.
some flowers there. But you mentioned like trying to convey that emotion. It's hard in writing because there's no tone, but how do you think you let someone feel like they were there through your writing?
I the first thing I like to do, and I'm sure you know a lot of these words because on the broadcast. I like to take a lot of words that I might hear from other broadcasts. I'm kind of a crazy NFL fan. In my opinion, I think Joe Buck is a boring announcer. So I'm like, boo. I hate. I can go all day about Joe Buck, especially his call in the NFC Championship game. But I really look at guys like Al Michaels or Chris Sims, and I just go into the way or Chris Collinsworth, and just go into the way like they kind of pronunciate stuff, and in my head I'm like, how can I translate that to writing to keep the view to whoever's reading it engaged in my stuff, and so from there I'll add in words like I mean, then these are just like little action words, but like, oh, beyond the arc, or like stuff like, to really engage them in. It's kind of hard to say because I'm not in that mindset right now, but that's the way I kind of view it to keep them engaged and to really come off with that sort of tone, like, hey, this was like an in-game thing, here's I want you to envision this, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it does come across that way. And I mean, you already mentioned one article that was like "Welcome to College" moment, but what about maybe your favorite article you've written with them?
Oh, okay, I got two. I got
Yeah,
two.
absolutely.
So my first favorite article, it's 100% when the Lobos beat UNLV and they won the Mountain West tournament. Not tournament, regular season. They were Mountain West regular season champions. The court was flooded with fans and everything. Everybody was down there on the court, and I was like, "Oh man, this is crazy!" Confetti was falling down. Donovan Dent, True Washington cutting down the net. I was like, "Oh wow." I'm sitting in the media room talking to everybody. It's like that was crazy. The game itself was really good. I had no doubt that the Lobos, you know how they were last year. They were pretty
Hmm.
good, NCAA appearance, March Madness appearance, I guess you could say. Um, I was very, very not only I felt when the game ended, I don't know if you feel like this. I knew it was going to be a good article. I
Hmm.
pumped it out. I'm saying sports never really makes front page, especially I try to fight for it, but they're like, "Oh, we gotta talk about news," and I'm like, "Oh man." Um, I wake up the next morning and Sean Ryder from the Albuquerque Journal he texts me and he goes, "You made front page," and I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? And then he sent me a picture of it, and I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. I didn't even know I made front page. I like to hang up all my articles on my wall, so I'm looking at all of them over there. And then my second favorite, um, and this is mainly just because of the story, but it's an amazing article as well. Danny Granger used to play at UNM, right?
Hmm.
And so we have a Hall of Honor, and he was getting inducted into the UNM Hall of Honor, and we got to do a presser with him. So I get there early. I'm like the only reporter in the room. That's like this little makeup room or whatever, and I'm just kind of sitting down there. And usually, and I interviewed somebody else before that. He was a great tennis player. I forget his name. It's Matthew. I'm not even going to try to say his last name because I'm going to butcher it. They announced, hey, here's Matthew. You can speak to him. So I'm sitting down. I'm waiting for Danny Granger to come because I'm thinking it's just going to be a one-on-one. He just opens up the door and walks in. And I'm a big fan of Danny Granger, just his game in general. If you ask me, that's Paul George before Paul George even became Paul George, right? People like to forget about Granger, but man, could he spark up the court. He just walks in, 6'9" dude, and he just sits down right next to me like it's a random Wednesday, right? And I'm like, nice to meet you. You're Danny Granger, right? He's like, yeah. And me and him just started talking about his playing career. Obviously, he talked about Big Roy Hibbert. Great Indiana Pacer, not too good on the Lakers, but that I digress. Um, uh, he also spoke about he apparently has a really good relationship with Larry Fitzgerald. Random, I didn't know that. But yeah, it was just such a shock speaking to him because it's like this is like the first major athlete that I had ever spoken to up to that point, and I was like, wow, like you were literally in the NBA, you were first round pick, you had a pretty decent career. Funniest thing he told me was, man, you don't want to get injured, I could sweep playing. I'm like, Danny, I love you, but come on, man. I was like, um, and then all the other reporters flooded in. I was told no pictures with him, but then somebody got a card signed, and I was all like, I'm gonna get my picture. So I got a picture with him, and yeah, so that the moment was great. And then the story I wrote around it was amazing. I stayed up all night because I was like, he gave me so much in that presser because I asked like, I usually don't want to ask a lot of questions in a presser, but I asked a lot, and so I was like, man, he gave me so much. This is pretty good. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna roll with this. So yeah, no, I mean, just an amazing moment for me and one of my best articles, really.
No, that sounds like a really great experience, and I'll make sure I link those articles specifically as well. I gotta say though, newspapers and the articles up on the wall is a great idea. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, well, when people come into my room, some people might think I'm crazy, like putting up a Stranger Things wall, and they're like, "What are you doing?" But I'm like, "Oh, I swear, I wrote all those. Trust me."
No, it's a lot. I mean, it's obviously a lot of fun. I like trying to look back at stuff or hang stuff up on the wall. I don't have as many like written articles, but I know I've got friends that even have them up on their walls as well, and it looks super sick.
Oh yeah, I'm almost done for the wall in general, and then I'll just probably collect them, put them in like a box, get some clippings out.
Fair, no, it's a good idea. I think. Oh, I just remembered that. Like, I'll take like my credentials, and I have a little. What do you call it? Like a little. I don't know, a board. I have a board that I stick pins on, and I put them on there.
Oh,
So I have that like on my desk, and I'll put on a bunch of credentials, and that's how I keep those.
okay, that's nice. That's nice.
So that's my version of it, I guess. But you had
Um,
a pretty good season with like New Mexico basketball. Richard Pitino, Donovan Denton, you mentioned. I mean, that's got to be pretty cool to cover.
oh yeah, definitely some of my favorite memories come from basketball. No, this to the UNM team. I think Jason Eck is going to be a great coach, but we're far from being great. But
Mhm.
that, in my opinion, that UNM team could have made some noise, could have made more noise than they did. I fully do believe that they should have beat Michigan State.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I really enjoyed that article. Not the fact that they lost, but I think it was a good article in general. And I say at the end of the article, I said, some people will blame, the refs. Others will blame, the terrible plays or offensive momentum down the stretch. But regardless of what you say, the Lobos still had their chances to win that game.
Yeah.
It's not like they got blown out and they were done. They should have won that game, in my opinion. I was just shocked. But the season in general, though, it was just great to cover. Like you already mentioned, we already know how great Donovan Dent is. Maddie went to UCLA. Wish he could have stayed. Um, True Washington was underrated in my opinion. True Washington was a baller. Nelly Junior Joseph, we already spoke about. Um, I was a big fan of Braden Applehans. I thought he was gonna stay, but new coach, Eric Olin comes in, so what can you do? But no, it was just a fun experience, and the pit is such a great atmosphere to cover games in. Um, Going down that ramp, I'll come in about 15 minutes before game time, peek out just to make sure the players aren't in the huddle, so I'm not disrupting anything. And then I kind of jog down, I'm like, let's go. Obviously not. People start cheering. I'm like, yeah, it's not for me, but I'll take it. And so just a great atmosphere there. And it gets loud. It gets loud.
That's what I've seen. Like I've seen it's probably one of, if not the best atmosphere for, or even just the best arena in college basketball. I don't know your take on that, but it's gotta be up there, probably top 10, I would think.
I I think it is top 10.
Okay.
Just like I said, like it's a very well built arena, first of all. And like I said, just New Mexico might not have a pro sports team, but these fans show up. They show up for everything, whether it's the Isotopes, UNM football, uh, the United get a lot of love here, and so and for obvious reasons, not just because they're let's go watch the game. It's a Saturday. Why not? It's because they actually care about the team here, and I've always respected New Mexico for that. So.
Yeah, do the fans kind of treat the Lobos almost like their professional sports team? That's kind of what it's like in Iowa City. There's not a professional team necessarily in Iowa, but Iowa City, the Hawkeyes are that's their professional team.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they view the football team, women's basketball, men's basketball, like, hey, if we do good, we are going to celebrate. There is going to be a parade in our city, um, and and I love it. It's so even though UNM football might not be the best as of right now. We still have to see things. Michigan week 1 upset alert. I'm
I
just
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind.
no, but whenever they get a big win or do whatever, the fans always show up, and it's just great atmosphere here in general, especially for sporting events. Obviously, some games get more attendance than others, and you want to see more fans probably flood into a university stadium. But in general, I think no matter what, they still show out. They still show up, and they're loud.
Absolutely. I think this last night on the basketball team for you, real quick, that I can think of with Richard Pitino going to Xavier. They're going to be in
Mm.
Iowa City this year. So I got to ask you, what notes you have for me on Richard Pitino?
He's a very from my experiences with him, he's okay. He's not a bad guy to interview. A lot of people be like, "Here's a clip of him yelling and being intense." Oh, here's a clip. There people will take clips out of context. Like I think they were up by like 30 on I don't know a team like Utah State or whatever, and he was like freaking out on the sideline because of a call, and I was like, "Dude, what are you mad at?" I was like, "You're up." No, he's a very in game. He's very intense, but he takes his team very seriously. And kind of a cool guy to interview. He's not like rude, if that makes sense. Like some people try to
Oh,
portray him. But I'd say he's a very laid back guy. Not like all the way laid back. Like you can't be asking no dumb questions, but he's very straightforward as well. He'll give you like a really good answer if you need it. Like during the season, they lost to I believe it was the NMSU game. I could be wrong about that, but it went into OT and Donovan Dent actually got benched, and I was like, I picked up on it. Nobody else in the media section picked up on it, but I picked up on it. And the game ended. Lobos lost. In the interview room, I asked him. I was all like, "Why'd you take out Donovan Dent?" And yeah, just straightforward with him. And he was all like, he wasn't playing the best basketball at the time, and by the time we could put him back in, it was too late. We couldn't foul. We couldn't do anything. So those type of answers you can expect from him.
that's nice to hear. I'm glad to hear that, especially with them coming up. And I'll no matter what, I'm gonna find myself at that game because Xavier's pretty much Cincinnati. So I'm thinking you're coming up and following me up to Iowa City. I've got to find my way to
Right?
that game.
They're just following you everywhere now, huh?
Oh, I know. I know. I don't know how much you know about this part, but the Xavier and like University of Cincinnati rivalry is insane. So like,
Really?
oh, it's crazy. People here in Cincinnati are like at least the University of Cincinnati fans are like Xavier's not even in Cincinnati. We don't acknowledge them. They are in this different area, and they're probably a 10-15 minute drive. But like, yeah, no, they go at it pretty hard.
I think it's funny because a lot of people here who I was speaking to, they didn't know where Xavier was actually at, and neither did I. I was all like, when that announcement got put up, I was kind of like this, and this no diss to them at all, but I was like, I was like the Snoop Dogg meme where I was like, who? I was like, what is that? And so me and my friends were talking about it, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're not too bad, they're pretty good. So I was like, all right, makes sense. So
No, that's very fair. I think that's a thing for a lot of people. They don't realize Xavier could be like in the greater Cincinnati area, and I think that's fine. I'm not like a big Xavier fan or anything, so you're good. It's just more like it's just interesting to me.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what is very interesting? The amount of people who think New Mexico is in Mexico. I've told people, "Hey, I'm the sports reporter for UNM," and they go, "Oh my God, do you? Is it hard? Writing in Spanish?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, I was like, "What are you talking about right now, dude?"
That's
I'm like, it's in the USA. What do you want?
crazy.
So yeah.
I gotta ask this person. I don't. This is the part I don't know. New Mexico, New Mexico State. How far are they apart?
They're about, I'd say, a 3-hour drive,
Oh.
maybe two. That rivalry though, it's a good one. Um, no matter where that game is being played at, you want to talk about a game that gets fans in their seats. And that can be said for any rivalry game, obviously, but this one gets New Mexico amped up. Like we'll have people from Farmington come over and be like, "Yeah, I drove 3 hours and 40 minutes from Farmington just so I could watch the Lobos play NMSU." And they got the better of us in basketball, give them that. But hey, how was Devin Dampier running for 4 touchdowns on you? That's all I'm saying. Devin Dampier.
We do we have a positive outlook this year for UNM over them?
Um, I think as of right now, we don't have I don't know when this episode's going to be out, but as of right now, we do not have a definitive starting quarterback, which does concern me a little bit. But I don't know. Every time we play them, it's always like it's always going to be a grinded out game, whether it's
Hmm.
football, basketball, any other sport, you name it. It's going to be a grinded out. Like there's no feeling each other out. I'm going to hit you in your mouth right away. So that's how it always feels. Very physical. No matter, it's sports, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's
Yeah.
always like off the jump. It's like we want to beat you, and this is how bad we want to beat you. Um, I actually had them flip though. I thought football was going to lose to them,
Hmm.
and basketball was going to beat them. Even our women's basketball team lost to them twice, and I wasn't there for the presser, but one of my reporters was like, Mike Bradbury was pissed because I guess up to that point he had not lost to NMSU, and then he lost to them again. So terrible.
I feel like that's when you know it's a really good rivalry too. No matter how good or bad each team is, if they're going at it, you know it's going to be a close game. I mean, that's a sign of a really strong rivalry.
Okay, who's Iowa's rival? If you don't mind me
Our
asking.
main rival, I would say, is Iowa State, and that's
Okay.
about 2 and a half hours away.
Hmm.
Um, that gets pretty good. But then we go in within the conference, and it's probably Nebraska. But it's like when the Big Ten welcomed their four new West Coast schools, they went away from divisions because they did like the West and East divisions for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But for football scheduling, they said, all right, these teams get these opponents every single year as like their rivalry locks, like they're locked in yearly. And Iowa was the only school in the Big Ten to get three of them. Every other
Oh, okay.
school got 1 to 2.
Mm.
So like every other opponent rotates, but those three are always there. So we got Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Nebraska is definitely our number one, but
Oh wow.
all three of those in the Iowa State game are all trophy games for us.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah.
If it makes you feel better, in NCAA 25, I hopped on the Iowa bandwagon. I had to rebuild you guys a little bit. Uh, I don't know. I'm a diehard Rams fan, as you know. So yeah, I'll always root for Iowa over Iowa State because Brock Purdy went to Iowa State.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's like get out of here, man.
I
Go play
know.
another season.
Well, I
But
mean, speaking
go
about
back.
Rams Super Bowl real quick,
Oh man,
how'd you like that one a few years ago?
it was amazing. My reaction for it, I was jumping up and down, and one moment that I'll never forget, because I saw it with my dad. I always watch every game with my dad. Um, and the Daily Lobo also knows this too. So if anybody's out there like, wait, isn't that on Sundays? I'm like, yes, the Lobo meetings are mainly at noon. Rams don't play until 1 here because LA times. And if it is a noon game that we play, I ain't gonna be there. I just
I
like
mean, yeah.
but and me and him, we always watch every game together. I don't think we've ever missed a game, and if we have, it was probably due to like him. He's a he works as a CEO of a United Way, and
Okay.
so if we ever did miss a game, it was probably because of him going out. But man, that Super Bowl, genuinely one of the best moments I ever had. I'm mad because OBJ would have won Super Bowl MVP, but it doesn't matter. We still won anyway. And T. Higgins might have pulled Jalen Ramsey's face mask a little bit. So I know Bengals fans, I know you're Cincinnati guy, but it's like, hey, listen, Logan Wilson, in my opinion, we had to get our call back. Okay. But no, and when Donald threw Burrow to the ground, Samaje P. Ryan, thank God he decided not to die for the football. um, man, me and my dad, we hugged, and I was happy. I was jumping up and down, and genuinely one of the best memories I have as a Rams fan, especially because my dad saw the 1999 Rams win their Super Bowl. I grew up with the days of, hey, Jeff Fisher is our head coach. We're gonna have Brian Schottenheimer as our OC. Oh, who's our quarterback? Sam Bradford goes down. We're gonna put in Austin Davis. Austin Davis. A lot of people are gonna be like, who the hell is Austin Davis? Exactly. I've seen some terrible quarterbacks. Austin Davis, Sean Hill, Kellen Clemens. I could go on and on, but yeah, genuinely one of the best moments of my life.
Yeah, an incredible moment. I know I was on the other side of that. I
Ah,
my thing with like here the Logan Wilson T Higgins thing is like I do believe the Logan Wilson call was like wrong, but then the T Higgins call like being missed was so much like I think that was more obvious is in my
so you
opinion.
are a Bengals fan?
I am a Bengals fan.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
It's all good. No, it's all good. I just with that those two calls there, I think the Higgins call was more obvious, but I think they were
Yeah,
both missed. So it makes sense to get it
100%.
back.
And like I said, I wish OBJ didn't get hurt. I think
Oh,
he would have had a monster game. But I will say, in my opinion, we had probably the best Super Bowl, one of the best Super Bowls within the past,
hmm.
5 years? I mean, people like to, and people will be like, oh, it's because the Chiefs didn't play. I'm like, that game was good. No matter who you rooted for, it was a good game.
It came
Um,
down to the final few plays.
exactly, and I know Aaron Donald's probably haunting your mind still. Just kidding. I'm just joking. But
Yeah, no, no, he is.
But I'll say though, I mean, Cincinnati, you guys are bound. In my opinion, it's between you guys and Baltimore to win the North, 100%.
I would
Uh,
agree with that.
I don't think Derrick Henry is going to be as good as he was. You know how running backs are in the NFL, especially when they age. I look at Cincinnati. The one question mark for you guys would just be the defense. We
Mm.
already know the offense is going to be great. Joe Burrow, in my opinion, top 3 quarterback in the league. I don't know who you're really taking over him. You could even make an argument for one. Probably you guys have a top 2 wide receiving core with Higgins and Chase. And I believe the O line got better. I could be wrong about that. You view more than me. So, but I think the defense is the one question mark, obviously. But because you guys want to spend $5 on defense, call it a day. But
Oh, kidding, no kidding. It's that might be generous, honestly.
yeah. But you know what I'll say? I'd rather have at least you guys view defensive talent at, and this coming from a diehard Rams fan. Our D line tremendous, our safeties tremendous, cornerbacks they're okay. We don't have a true number 1 guy, but I'm a fan of Ahkello Witherspoon. I like him. I like Jacoby Durant. I like Darius Williams. Our linebacking core is what concerns me because for some reason Sean McVay, as much as I love him, is kind of allergic to getting good linebackers. I was a fan of the Chris Paul Jr. draft, right? We drafted Chris Paul Jr. this year. I was like, let's go. Like, that's a steal, especially in the 5th round. We also signed undrafted free agent Sean Dolak from Buffalo, led all college football in tackles. I didn't even know that. I'm a big fan of his. But then I look at everybody else and I'm like, why did we re-sign Troy Reader? Why is he still on the roster? Troy Reader haunts my dreams. Christian Roseboom haunts my dreams. Saquon Barkley haunts me for running 500 yards in 2 games on us because, we don't have linebackers. So I don't know. That's the one concern for me.
No, that's absolutely fair. Hopefully, good seasons for both the Rams and Bengals. But yeah, there's definitely plenty of question marks, and I'm ready for Week 1. I'm very, again, at least from a Bengals perspective, the first few weeks. I don't know if you know this little stereotype with them, but they can't win weeks 1 through 3.
Yeah.
But this year, their main starters, especially offensively, are actually playing in some of the preseason games. So they
Mm.
might actually get a win or two in those first few weeks, which
I
would
mean,
be
hey, the Rams have been the same way for the past 2 years.
nice.
Okay. I mean, I'm sitting over here, I'm like, we are 1-4. And I was like, I'm okay with the 10-7 finish. But I'm like, I hate that though. I hate when it comes down to the wire. I'm like, just beat them straight up, you know. Because we lost to the Bears in Week 4 last year. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, really, Chicago game we should have won. We should have beat Green Bay. I could go all day like about the Rams. My bad. We can jump back on
You're
topic.
good. Who's going for the West this year? Because I know I got to give a shout out to my one of my best friends, Brady Barron, who's a Niners fan.
Mm.
He just graduated from Iowa. Um, I wonder who do you think is going? Who do you think has got the top of the West this year?
If I'm being completely honest with you, and I might just be, you can call me biased, I still think it's us. I look around the West and I don't see a team that's threatening too much. Arizona's Arizona. They have Kyler Murray as their quarterback. Okay. And I hate when we're deep in the offseason when the NFL's like, Marvin Harrison Jr. has bulked up. It's the same picture. I'm like, what are we looking at here?
They're all in the gym.
And, right? But I think Arizona could finish second in the West. I think they might be somewhat sneaky, especially because their defense is going to be what carries them. Seattle, I mean, they have Sam Darnold as their quarterback. I'm not worried about Seattle, and I hate the fact. And I'm looking at my signed Cooper Cup helmet right now. It hurts like a dagger through my heart. I was like anywhere but there. And I think Cooper Cup is great, but it is true to the fact that maybe he did lose a little bit of a step, and obviously this in sports in general, availability is the best ability. So Devonte Adams, I'm like, hey, out with the old and with the older, but I'm like, I like Tay Adams. I think he'll be a good X wide receiver for us. And the Niners lost a lot. I hear
Mm.
people try to justify it and say, well, they had a quiet offseason. That's not. I mean, that could be a good thing, but who do they have? I love Demarcus Robinson, but he's your third wide receiver option. Is Ayuk even going to be on the roster by the time the trade deadline rolls around? You never know. I don't think the Niners are going to be as good as they were in 20. I think their window has actually closed. So, and I agree with Puka Nacua. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarter. I view Brock Purdy and Jared Goff in the same type of realm. They're good, but they'll win you games, but they won't win you a Super Bowl.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I got to say, always growing up, and even just now, looking at the NFC West race has always been fun because I feel like it's one of the more like they all knock heads all the time, year in, year out. But I think that's fair with the Rams because I mean, looking at the Niners, paying attention to them, I feel like everyone was a free agent. It's hard to resign everyone.
Exactly. I gotta ask you this question now.
Hmm.
What's your thoughts on Cleveland? Mr. Shadur Sanders, perfect timing.
Oh my! Oh well, here's the thing: is like I for once feel a little bit more confident, and this sounds crazy, but Cleveland's our kryptonite. Cleveland
Really?
is I'll be honest, they kind of owned the Bengals for a few years, even when they were worse. We just could not beat the Browns. And it's turned around the past few years where we've actually started to beat the Browns. I think was it this year? I believe it was like I'm not going to try to do the numbers. I'm going to butcher it, but it was the first time in a while that we'd beat the Browns twice in a season. And
Oh wow.
yeah, so it's been turning around, and I feel a bit more confident. But that team always finds a way to beat us somehow. So I wouldn't be shocked if we split with them, considering that who knows, maybe they do have a decent quarterback situation. Like their quarterback situation has been strange.
We have six.
Yeah, I know. Like it was funny because when I started this show, I was talking to a guy at Ohio State who was at the time covering the Cleveland Browns as well. And I asked him, all right, what about the quarterback situation? Who do you think is going to start? And he said Kenny Pickett. And he's like, they traded for him. They're going to give him a shot to start week 1, probably. And I was like,
Wow.
wow. I was shocked by that as well. And obviously, I think he got a little banged up. And I wouldn't be shocked if they go with someone. It's like right now, it's what, Joe Flacco?
That's who I think it's going to be week 1. I think Pickett is the one who's going to get traded because they said they're going to trade one of their 6 quarterbacks. What a shocker! I think it will be Pickett. I don't think it will be Gabriel. I think Gabriel's going to be a career backup in the NFL, kind of like a Stetson Bennett type.
I agree.
Uh, but I think Shadur is the question mark. Then you sign Tyler Huntley, who's probably just a camp body. I think Huntley's going to get cut. Um, and then you got Flacco, and I think Flacco's going to be your starter week 1. And then you know how NFL teams go. The Browns will most likely be mediocre to somewhat bad. And then they'll be like, okay, Shadur, you get your playing time, man. And then he'll have nobody to throw to. Just kidding. But
No, fair. I mean, I would agree
I,
with that and everything with them. As far as like the standings, I would see them in the 4 spot in the division. Oh, and like
yeah,
the Steelers, I don't know if they're going to be as good as they have been, but they always find a way to win and find themselves at least in the race for a playoff spot. But
he'll be
I don't know.
Steelers will be 9-8. They're retirement home right now.
That's
Yeah, Rodgers. So it's like,
They'll be right there on the verge again. Mike Tomlin always finds a way.
oh yeah. So I think 9-8 for them, maybe 10-7, and then either they're going to bounce in the wild card or they don't make it. Again, like I said, it's really between you guys and Baltimore. I really am high on Cincinnati, especially just because of that offense. I could see you guys. You know, people say, "Well, defense is just the way to win games. You know, defense wins championships." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but if you really want to think about it, like, all you really got to do is stop them once. I mean, and again, I was not alive for this, but from what I was told by my father, the '03 Rams are exactly like that. They could put up 1,000 points on you, but they couldn't stop you. So their game plan was, hey, we got to just score. So that's what they did. We did lose, I believe, Carolina in the wild card. I think Steve Smith Sr. got a punt return on us, but yeah.
No, it makes sense and everything. I just, as a Bengals fan, I have to be honest, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping you're right about all, but I do feel pretty good about things. There's just always those little question marks up in the air. So we'll see as things get rolling for the season. But you also mentioned that you've got an internship right now. So talk to
Yes.
me a little bit about that and what's that looking like for you?
So currently I am interning at KOAT Action 7 News, which is one of the local stations here in New Mexico. And it's been great. At first I was put on a lot of news stuff, and it's like a whole different world from sports, right? I'm sitting over here, I'm like, what's this court term? I'm like, what are we talking about here? I'm like, who's on trial? Who are we talking about? This, that, and the other. But then, as my internship progressed, because this is actually my last week. I have today, tomorrow, and Friday. And then I'm fully done. But they moved me to sports, and I've been enjoying it. I like talking about sports in front of the camera. I don't like to think I'm camera shy, so I'm in there doing my thing. Blabbering on about. We just had MMA fight go down here, and it was Anthony Pettis' promotion. I think it's called like APFC. Uh, and we have a Jackson Wink is actually in Albuquerque. A lot of people don't know this, but John Jones and Holly Holmes trained at Jackson Wink here in Albuquerque. They got their pictures up and everything. I told them, I was like, hey, if I ever need a bodyguard, do I go to you guys or just kidding? But yeah, so we covered them. I got to do some stand-ups for my reel, which is like just putting together pieces and wanting to be in front of the camera. Like, hey, this is how I act. These are my mannerisms. What do you think? And producers or talent managers will be like, oh, I like how you did this. Let's get an interview. And they go dive deep into it. But it's just been great. I've been learning a lot. Ron Burke, who's one of our sports people here, he's tremendous. I'm gonna butcher her last name. I believe it's Ruby Aurora. Uh, she's an amazing sports reporter. She's terrific here. And yeah, I've learned a lot from those two. They've taught me a lot. I have heard some terrible takes in the newsroom, but we don't need to go into that. Just know that some people have really bad takes. But yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. It's been great. Average day, I walk in there. It's not just like a 9 to 5, because sometimes you never know when breaking news is gonna happen. And if I'm with a reporter, they're like, "Hey, you kind of gotta be out here for longer," and I'm like, Ah, okay, that's cool. You know, I got some cameraman work in. I worked in creative services, engineering. I was actually just with sales yesterday, and that was great. Free lunch. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it's been great though. I've really enjoyed my experience, and like I said, I feel like I've learned a lot. And again, like I said, I'm a Dragon Ball guy, so I tie it back to Dragon Ball a lot, to where I'm like, when Goku lost to or when Goku defeated King Piccolo the first time, he went up to Kami's tower, trained, and planned to fight him again. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm currently at Kami's tower, waiting to come down, and you know, because a lot of people will say, "Hey, you're in front of a camera." That's totally different from writing a paper. But in my opinion, I'm like, that is true. But I still learn stuff about journalism in general. Like, a lot of these guys started out as writers for newspapers. And it's just been great learning from them and them telling me stuff that I could do differently. A lot of them have actually checked out my articles, and they've like, "Hey, this is good, but what if you did this?" And giving me positive feedback. And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll definitely look into that. Definitely try to do that." And I've also made so many great connections working at KOAT. It's been a blast.
You started lean into what I want to. I'm curious about what you can take from your internship. What are you going to take back into this semester at New Mexico?
Um, Journalism wise, just a lot of definitely the professionalism, right? I always felt like I was professional before, but seeing the way these guys carry themselves, especially in the newsroom, I'm like, oh man, you know, they're like, you can tell there's a difference between certain people in this industry, and it's like, wow, they're like legit. Um, so they're great. That's the first thing, the professionalism. Um, Secondly is the way they, you know, I always thought, I can bug a source a little bit if I need some information on something, or reach out to one of the media people more than multiple times. But they're like, hey, you could do it like once or twice, and sometimes just go out there if you don't get a response. There's been multiple times where I have not gotten a response, and I'm like, well, story's capped. But they're like, just go out there. The worst they can say is no to you, right? This can be like, no, that's why I didn't respond to the emails. I'm like, oh man, like that's great information to know. So just there's so many other things, and I could rant on about it for an hour about it. But all the things that I've learned, I'm definitely taking with me to not only the Daily Lobo, but for me personally moving forward. I don't know. I wasn't able to touch on this, but I don't know what I fully want to do in the journalism field. Maybe there is a career for me in TV, or do I stick to print? Or I know you know a lot about radio and broadcasting. Maybe I want to go into that field. Who really knows? I want to get a sense of all of them. All of it. So I want to you know kind of take in my options and just see where I want to go from there.
Do you think there's a part of student journalism that makes it more unique or special, or that people can try different areas of it? Like you mentioned, like writing or broadcasting. Do you think there's a certain aspect that makes student journalism special for that?
Oh yeah, journalism itself is very broad. Um, I've always kind of known that, and because there's multiple forms of journalism, like I already mentioned print. You have TV, you got radio. In my opinion, those are kind of like the big three. But I'm sure there are others. Like I'm trying to I'm trying to think of something. Like, I mean, I guess I put broadcasting and radio in the same category, but you could even
Yeah.
say broadcasting an extent is its own thing. So in my eyes, yeah, journalism is very broad. You can really go any way and still be successful in this industry. I just so happen to start out in print, and now I'm taking my uh, gloves into the ring of TV. So I'm kind of bouncing around, just checking out every avenue, like I said. And I think it's great for people to do that. I think, honestly, if you are a student reporter, definitely get all, in my opinion, like I said, the big three. You want to get all three. And others too. If you're not that big of a radio guy, just don't do it. But in my opinion, I think everybody should at least do one each time, and then really decide from there, or don't, do something else. I've met people who were like, yeah, I used to cover the Lobos as well, and now I'm in an ice cream truck. I'm like, oh, no, don't know how those connect, but cool, So there's so many paths that you can go in this industry, and At the end of the day, if you're like, hey, this isn't for me, you got a pretty good, diploma. You can do a lot with it. I think it's a great major, the best major. Let me clarify that: journalism, mass communication, best major. Do it if you're undecided. But yeah, no, I think it's so broad. You can just do so many things, and I think, especially being a student journalist, I don't think I would be here without that uh, previous line of work.
No, very well said. I think it's always important. Like if you like something, this is the time to try it out. Do what you love. And I mean, trying out all these different things from what you've seen, why do you think student journalism is so important, or why is it important for people on the outside to pay attention to?
Um, because student journalists are real journalists. I've had people come up to me and go, "Oh, you work for the school. You're just the school paper," or "Oh, you're just this." Oh, okay. Like I actually had, I'm not going to name his name, but it was a media person. They said, "You're a student journalist. You have no merit to do this, do that, whatever." And I was like, what? I was like, I get paid for this still. I'm on a payroll. I, put out print, every week. And just because it's the UNM student publication, we still are journalists. We're still going out in the field. We're still gathering sources. We are still doing stories, whether you're in sports, news, culture. You're still doing all the things for the most part that real journalists do. Your schedule might not be as hectic, but you're still doing the real life work. It's not like you're sitting down and you're like, oh, I get to go to a free game. Yay. You're going to that game. You're writing down your notes. You're going into the interview, the presser. You're talking to the people. You're talking to the players, the coaches. Uh, Even and if you want to talk about news and print, you're talking to politicians still. Our news editor has spoken to multiple politicians here. And one of the news stories that I did, I talked to one of the it's a Ukrainian organization here in Albuquerque, and I asked them about what their thoughts in the war in Ukraine is going on, and this is off topic of sports, but like Trump's comments on Zelensky and all that, and I asked them their opinion on it. They gave me their answer, and boom, I'm still talking to these people. You're doing the real life work, so I think that is a great trait. And on top of that, if anybody goes, "Hey, you're not a real journalist," yes, you are. You're doing work. You're
Yes,
going out
sir.
there.
Yes, sir. No, thank
Sorry
you.
if I got a bit passionate about that, but
No, I want I mean, that's what student journalism is. It's not just kids who are just doing this and like, we're just out here and I guess it's just for fun or just for a club or class or for a job.
yeah,
There's a passion to it. Like, sure, like I know like some student journalists aren't even on a payroll. I'm on a payroll, but it's not like it's the biggest payroll in the world. You're out there
it's
because
not.
you love it.
Exactly. Like in my opinion, I'm not really working.
No.
I go out there because I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love doing conducting interviews. I love reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, can we get this interview? Because a lot of people forget, I'm doing this and school. And while, like I said, the schedule might not be too hectic, sometimes I gotta, and I love covering football. Hey, yeah, game is on Saturday. That's still a Saturday that I don't get, to myself like some other college students might get. Hey, the weekend is to relax, rejuvenate, do other work. I'm doing my other work. Then I get home at like 9, 10, and then I got to write an article, So it's like, regardless of what anybody says, you are doing real life work. You are doing the work of a journalist. And if you're not, then you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely. No, it's all, I mean, you're doing the full thing. You're doing the whole, you're going through the 9 yards, you're contacting people, and hell, you're telling stories that at least from my perspective, I've told stories that some of the professional outlets haven't been able to tell. And that's just, I think, a privilege of student journalism.
Exactly. I 100% agree because say what people can say what they want to say, but we are, in the building. We know the gossip around campus. We know bigger stories before they break. The the thing I knew who it was beforehand. I kind of handled it poorly. I probably should have handled it better, but or like investigate more into it. So I blame myself for this. But you might have heard about it when a New Mexico basketball player hit another New Mexico basketball player on a plane. That sent everybody into frenzy. I had to stay up all night because I was like, I didn't write it, but I had somebody else write it because I was like, hey, write this. I'll edit it tonight. We'll go down deeper into it. And they did. They were able to get the most information they could. It ended up being who I knew it was beforehand because I was told by a source. I probably should have. If anybody is a journalist watching this, if your source wants to stay off the record, please, go deeper into what they are saying, investigate what they are saying. No matter what, your story will pay off big time for it. I did not do that, and we were late to the party. But I digress. Still, I knew stuff like that, and just because people knew, hey, he's the sports editor, right? He's let's give him some little details and leave it like that. So you get more of an inside scoop just being in campus or being a student, being around everybody. So
No, it is a
yeah,
good point. I mean, whether I know people from student managers or some coaches that I've talked to, there's always going to be, or hell, even the athletes that you're in class with half the time. I mean, you're going to have those
oh yeah.
connections.
And I say the biggest thing is too, especially treating athletes, just treat them like they're normal people. You don't have to be afraid of going up to athletes and going, oh wow, this is blah blah. He's like the guy on campus. I gotta tighten up, and I got no. You could just be cool around them. I mentioned Devin Dampier earlier. I ran into him, uh, and this is when the Lobos they were 0-4, like I said before the Mexico State game. And I went up to him and I was like, "Hey man, y'all gotta start winning. I'm tired of writing bad stories about you guys, right? Made a little joke, and he's a very personal guy. He started laughing about it, and then he told me to bet on his parlay. I did not, but uh, I probably should have. Again, like I said, he ran for about 4 touchdowns against NMSU, but yeah, no, it's just stuff like that and moments like that. I had True Washington in one of my journalism classes. Very laid back guy. And he actually called me out on one of the pressers. He was like, man, I had this dude in one of my classes. It's hilarious. I was all like, I asked him, I was like, hey, you passed? He was like, yeah, of course I passed. I was like, oh, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, just be very personable with them. You don't have to be afraid to talk to people. I mean, at the end of the day, they bleed the same as you. They have families. They're just everyday people. You don't have to treat them and put them on a pedestal and be like, I have to bow down to this person. If they, then that's really how I view it too.
Exactly. That's typically my advice for people that are newer and starting off and nervous to go do an interview. And that's typically what I just tell people. I'm like, these guys are normal people as well. They've lived their everyday life. They've had awkward situations. They're gonna talk to you and everything. Like they are normal people at the end of the day. They just happen to be
Exactly.
very skilled in a certain sport typically.
And what I'll say about that too is because I know I mentioned my first article terrible, like I said. But no, it's just about like, I wish I knew that at the time, but as you go more into it, you get more comfortable talking with these athletes. And I used to be very picky about my interviews. I was like, damn, I said too much in my interviews. Like I probably did it here too. I was probably like, so you see, but at the end of the day, it's like, who cares? You're human. People are gonna they're most of those athletes are not even gonna remember that interview by Thursday that week. You could interview Donovan Dent on Tuesday, maybe stutter in the interview. Oh, he stuttered. And it's like, who cares? He's not going to be thinking about that. You know, they're just going to continue to live on their lives. So don't be afraid to make mistakes either in journalism. That's probably another good advice that I would give to anybody who's new.
Ironically enough, that's what I want to ask you about. You kind of mentioned a few things and you could mention a million, but for someone who's starting off and wanting to enter sports journalism, what would be your one big piece of advice for them?
Always work hard. That's what I would say. And I know it's a bit cliche to be like, well, of course, obviously you want to work hard. But, in my opinion, especially starting out, and I'm gonna go back to I got this quote from a good friend of mine. I was an all C student in high school, right? And I was like, I took this AP Econ class, and I was like, I'm gonna fly by it again. First test comes, I totally bomb it, and I'm like, whoa, I'm gonna go from 100 to an 80. Who cares, I open up my grade book. I'm like, oh snap, I'm at a 32%. I'm like, I don't want to fail anything in my senior year, right? And so I was talking to my good friend. His name is Diego Sharma. Shout out Diego. He told me, and I've taken this mentality with me no matter what I do, whether it's work, school, no matter what. I think everybody should have this type of mentality. He told me, he was like, you see all these people in here, Rodney, they're smart. Me, I'm just a hard worker. And when he told me that, I was like, man, you're 100% right. And so, I passed the econ class from there, and then I took gov, passed that. But I take that philosophy with me no matter what. I don't like to, this isn't a flex by any means, but I've never had to drop a college course. If you do, that's okay, but I've never had to, because even if it's something that I don't understand, I'm like, I want to be a hard worker for it. Sports, I do not understand a lot of sports. Okay, I know it's funny coming for, if you ask me to say, "Hey, name me all these positions," and I'll just take baseball for example. I can't do it. But what I'll tell you is, I by no means am I saying I'm no the greatest writer of all time, but I was like, okay, I don't understand baseball that well. How do I get better at writing baseball? I go to more baseball games. I want to understand the game, so I'm going to work hard at understanding that game. So, and obviously, I knew somewhat about how baseball works, and now I know even more. I will say, if anybody does check out any of my baseball articles, there's a typo in the last one. I did not put points. I put runs. They changed it. That was not me. I just wanted to put that out there. But no, always just work hard to understand anything. Even if you're not the smartest person at that said sport, or not the most knowledgeable, work hard to understand it. A great book that I'm going to suggest to anybody out there, and even you if you want to read it, Colin. It's called Straight Shooter by Stephen A. Smith. It's a memoir about his life, but in it he gives a lot of good tips, because he worked at a publication for a long time, and so they put him on soccer. And in the book, he says, I knew nothing about soccer, but I asked the coaches and the players, and they taught me about soccer. That's how I became knowledgeable about the sport of soccer. So really, go read Straight Shooter. First of all, like I said, amazing. No matter how you feel about Stephen A, go read it. Um, and just secondly, just really just work hard, no matter what it is. Even if you fail at it, at least you can go home and tell yourself, I worked hard. I did all I could. At the end of the day, it might not work out in my favor, but I did all I can. And that's the biggest piece of advice I would give.
Absolutely. I love that. That is one of my favorite mindsets and everything. So kudos to you for that. And also, just because I get a chance to say it on record, no matter how you feel about Stephen A. Smith, I always love his story about how he's about how he's gotten to where he is now. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole progress is one thing. I remember when I was trying to figure out if this was something I wanted to do, looking through his progression and his journey, and that was something that I thought was cool.
And again, I don't want to hype up Stephen A, but like I said, he's really done it all. He was in radio, he was in print, and now he's on TV. And I want to take a lot of that path as well, because like I already said, I don't fully know what I want to do in the journalism game. I like all aspects. I was on Mike Adams 2.0 here. He does ESPN radio here. I liked being on radio, but I also like being on camera. But I also like doing print, and of course, there's going to be things in each department, or I should say, each each thing in journalism that's different and that you like more than the other. And there's going to be some things that you dislike. I know that there's some things that I dislike about print. There's things I dislike about TV, but there's also things I dislike about radio. At the end of the day, you really just gotta do what you love. Whatever you love, I just say go out there and do it. And like we mentioned earlier, if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life.
Absolutely. Amen to that right there. That is very well put. I think the nice thing with student journalism, at least at our point, is you mentioned it with the internship connections and networking with people. So, an opportunity for you here to plug anything you want, give a shout out to anything you need for people to check out after they've listened to this.
Definitely check out all my articles. You can find them all at dailylobo.com. Just type in Rodney Prunty. That is RODNEY PRUNTY. Follow me on Instagram. It's just rodney.prunty. I just saw Superman, obviously, last month. So my profile picture is baby me in a Superman costume. I've always been a diehard Superman fan. Uh, and, just reach out if you guys have any questions or if you're a possible connection and you want to talk. As you know, Colin, now, we talked a little bit about the NFL. I love talking sports. I love talking things that, all sports in general. No matter what, if you want to talk about golf, I'll break down golf for you. So, yeah, I'm not the biggest golf guy, but hey, I can tell you some things. I saw Happy Gilmore. I'm just kidding.
Have you seen Happy
But
Gilmore too?
no, not yet.
I haven't either.
I've
Don't
heard
worry.
mixed reviews about it, but yeah, no, just hit me up on IG and just make sure you guys follow Daily Lobo.
Absolutely. I appreciate I'll make sure I link everything as well as I was mentioning earlier. But again, Rodney, I appreciate you sparing some time for me. This was a lot of fun for me, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Oh yeah, it's such a great time, Con. I really think what the student beat is. I think it's such a great, and this is a testament to you. And I love the idea of the student beat. I was talking to my EIC about it, and he was all like, "So like, is it like sketchy at all?" It's like this is pretty legit, And I'm glad you were able to link a lot of the videos with it. Somebody who I know who's also interning, I always forget her name. You interviewed her. She goes to Oregon. So she was on here, and I was like, yeah, I love talking all things journalism. I love talking sports, and I think, like I said, the student beat is a great way to reach out to people, either up and coming journalists or just journalists in general who want to relate. So I definitely say, stay here, watch the student beat, no matter what. Listen to the student beat. Oh, YouTube, whatever you can get it, just watch it, listen to it. And I just really respect you so much, and I want to thank you for letting me coming on your show and being able to talk a little bit, even if I did go off a little bit talking about the Rams. But
That's what I want, though, man. That's what I want. And thank you. I really do appreciate that. It does mean a lot for me. So thank you.
of course, I say always keep it up, man. I think this is because are you a junior this year or a senior?
Yeah, going in my junior year.
Honestly, yeah. Hey, I honestly, keep this up for however long, man. Like I said, I think it's an amazing thing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for joining me for today.
Of course. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Student Beat. Make sure you check out all of Rodney's work and check out a few of his articles. I can tell you firsthand, they're a great read, they're a lot of fun, and they've got some great energy in them. And if you want to stay up to date with all upcoming episodes of The Student Beat, make sure to follow me on Twitter at C_Crithers33 or at The Student Beat. We just walked The Student Beat. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode.